Folks, my guest today is part of a lineage of one of the most well-known families in professional wrestling, spanning many, many decades, beginning with the matriarch Gory Guerrero and his sons Mando, Hector, Eddie, Shaul, and Chavo Sr. And joining us this week is Chavo Guerrero Jr., who is a third generation and not only had a tremendous career, or has had a tremendous career in the ring, but also enjoying quite a career as an actor now. And Chavo, welcome to Primetime. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
You know, I mentioned the acting part. We spoke briefly before we started the conversation here that little did you know, everything that you were probably trained from the time you were a little kid was going to prepare you for what's going on in your life these days.
Yeah, you know what? 100%, man. You know, it's kind of like, yeah, you know, I was talking to Fit Finley one of these days years back, and we were kind of talking. He's a third generation pro wrestler too, and kind of things that we do in the ring, you know, and not just the ring now, but it's like in the ring is we do it without really thinking about it. Like, I don't know how I learned it, but I just know it. Yeah. And a lot of things for him was the same way, you know. And then now just being, you know, starting off really with WWE and kind of just the way that they do everything, you learn really quick, even without them teaching you, you know. And yeah. I'm one of those learners that can just watch people. And I used to watch Vince and Kevin Dunn and all those guys a lot, and kind of really learn from that, and just, you know, then parlay that into, you know, producing Lucha Underground, and then went to Glow, and kind of now taken off as different supervised producers on different projects now. So it's kind of, it all kind of went full circle, man.
Yeah, it is. It really is amazing. And you mentioned some of the huge projects that you have been a part of. You also have been in many other on-screen appearances. But and I've had conversations with a lot of the people in the business who have transitioned into acting. I don't even know if you call it transition. It's just basically doing what you've probably done your whole life. But it's amazing how well prepared you are. And I don't think you realize it at the time, but then when you do get in front of a camera, you know, the ability to remember lines and to, you know, blocking and, you know, did you realize just how well prepared you were for that career?
I kind of did it. You know, when I left wrestling, you know, I guess you never really leave wrestling, but when I decided to kind of leave wrestling for, you know, until it sucked me back in, I did a couple, just a little small, like, things, like one thing on, like, Discovery ID channel. I did one thing, and another little small bit in a movie, a little small movie, just trying to see if I, you know, I thought that I knew kind of what was going on, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't fooling myself. Yeah. And I kind of, you know, and you kind of know, you know, you kind of learn, you know, about blocking and all that kind of stuff. And then taking that, like I said, to Lucha Underground, I really put it to work. And was kind of, when we first started that first season, I was showing, you know, all these camera guys, and they're Mark Burnett's guys, and they're great, but they had never shot wrestling before. So I was kind of showing them, hey, this is how we shoot wrestling, this is how we direct wrestling, this is how we, you know, the sound for wrestling, this is a vignette, all different things. They're kind of like, oh, I was kind of everywhere, you know. Of course, they picked, you know, after 2 or 3 episodes, those guys are pros, so they just picked up perfectly and just killed it. And then going from there, you know, learning, going to Glow, now I'm going like to the Harvard of television, to be honest, man. Just being behind that camera now, and then kind of working hand in hand with directors and producers, and, you know, you're in constant meetings and production meetings, and it's really, it's pretty cool, man. I love this aspect of entertainment, being behind the camera and creating. I really like that a lot, you know.
Well, and I wonder, because, of course, you kind of were born into this business. It was kind of, I would imagine it was kind of expected that you were going to end up in it. But, you know, I always wondered about you, because you've talked many times about how much you enjoy that process of putting television shows together, and not just from the concept or ideas, but you like getting in there with your you know, right behind the camera and, you know, being hands-on, I guess is the best way to explain it. When you were younger, was that a huge interest of yours? You know, knowing that the business was there, that was probably what you're going to do. But was that always a love of yours that you thought, you know, maybe someday I can do this?
Yeah, you know what? You know, we always, God, man, we were being a Guerrero, we were just wrestlers, man. We loved wrestling, so we always thought wrestling.
Yeah.
And it almost, we kind of almost backed ourselves into a corner because we loved wrestling so much.
Yeah.
You know, wrestling's such big business now that it's such pop culture in different, you know, areas of entertainment and all over the world that if you just think wrestling, you're limiting yourself. So now, you know, I was able to, you know, parlay that into like, you know, just Hollywood, into some acting, some producing, some stunt coordinating stuff. So all that stuff kind of just, you know what, I wasn't really going to go that route. And even though my Uncle Mondo left wrestling and became a stuntman, and, you know, did that for 20 or 30 years and actually retired with a pension and everything.
Yeah.
Really a pension. Yeah, see, a pension
Wow.
is something you don't
What
see
is
in
that?
wrestling. And yeah, exactly. I've explained this to some people because, you know,
Insurance.
no, for real. But in the real world, people don't have, you know, pensions anymore. You know, like
no.
I was talking to my mom when my mom was telling me a story when she actually finally retired. She was with UPS for, you know, 32 years, even before UPS delivered to the 50, like the continental United States to all the states there. So she'd been with them forever. When she retired and she was trying to do her you know, getting her finances together and see what she had to live on every month, her financial guy was like, okay, well, you know, here you go. And she's like, that's not that much. And he's like, well, you know, I kind of was fun shuffling the numbers and that's what you got. And she goes, well, what about my pension? And he goes, pension? What pension? You never mentioned a pension. She's like, yeah, I have a 92% of my pay for the rest of my life. And he's like, okay, that changes everything. He's like, people don't have pensions anymore. And my mom was like, what? What do you mean? You just don't have a pension. And so to be able to be in, you know, the Screen Actors Guild, and have a pension and have insurance and have people actually looking out for you, it's something that it's pretty special, man, to be honest.
Well, we all wish that that still existed, but you're right. That doesn't really, not many people at all anymore, unless you're in the military or work for the government. You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Luck.
For sure. Totally.
Yeah. Good luck with your 401k. But, you know, talking about the family, though, it really is amazing. You look at the family tree and you know, all these people that were in your family that have had such big contributions to the world of professional wrestling. But as a kid, what was it like growing up in that area? And we had Vicky on before, and I know it was very close to your family even as when she was very young. But she talked about how the people in that town were just enamored with the family because you guys were stars to them. You were big. You know, celebrities. What was it like when you were a kid and you had this enormous family around you and they're all connected to professional wrestling?
You know, I kind of just thought that's how it was. You know, I mean, I've grown up in the Guerrero family and kind of around wrestling and always being recognized as that. So it was nothing like new. It wasn't. I mean, I remember signing autographs before I was even. You know, when I was never in the ring, whatever, they just were like, "Hey, you're going to do something someday. I want the autograph."
You're just a Guerrero.
It was kind of cool. It was like, yeah, I don't know. It just kind of was just part of life, man. And I look back at it now, and you're kind of just like, oh, well, that's not normal. But you just, you know, that's how you grew up. Like my kids would go to their friends and say, "Hey, is your dad in this video game too?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, and you know, because that's just how they grew up with their dad in TV on video games and stuff, you know, and you know, action figures, and it just was, you know, part of life. You look back at it, it's just a little different now, you know, but it's so special, man. It was really cool to be able to you know, just to grow up in this cool special family and a cool special business, you know, for sure.
And what was the I guess, I mean, you call it a territory back then, but you guys also did a lot of wrestling down in Mexico and then also in California. What was the business shaped like back then before it really, you know, we saw the eventual demise of territories, but what about at that point in time and what your dad and your grandfather were doing?
Well, the business was definitely different, you know. It was different in the fact that they were gone a lot. Like, I remember growing up and not seeing my dad for, 6 months at a time sometimes because he'd be in the Georgia territory or he'd be wrestling for Mid-South, and you'd have to go live there. It wasn't like you could fly in and out. When my dad started wrestling for UWF, who was Bill Watts, he got this deal to where he was able to fly. He was the only one to be able to fly in and out, like every other weekend. He would come home for 2 days and then be able to fly back. And everybody was like, how'd you get that deal? Like, we want that deal. But like, nobody had that, unless you were, maybe the big star on campus, but nobody had that deal, and Bill watches like my dad a lot. So my dad goes, well, if I'm going to come work for you, this is what I need. So he's like, okay. And my dad's like, really? He goes, man, now I got to go work for him, But it's just a different time, man. It's just, you moved, me and The Rock used to talk about this all the time, where, I stayed in the same house all the time growing up. My dad would just go travel. Rocky Johnson took his family everywhere. So Rock, would pack up and move every couple of years, and move to a different, he lived in North Carolina, he lived in Hawaii, he lived in, other places because of the fact that, his dad would move him and keep the family together. So there's benefits and drawbacks to both. I grew up and went to the same schools, all elementary and high school was the same school. I didn't have to pack up and leave all the time,
So was it did it seem like that the women were always around, basically raising you guys, because all the men were probably out there working? Was that what it was like, or they were in town at different points? What was it? Was it like for not just with your dad, but with the uncles too? Yeah,
that was just a family business, man. That's some people, are they're in the military, and some people in family businesses, like policemen or teachers or lawyers or doctors. Ours was pro wrestling, the wacky world of pro wrestling. So my uncles, and in fact, other uncles would be Roddy Piper, Andre the Giant. This guys they're always at the house, So it's just the way it was. I wasn't. It was normal to me, even though it was very abnormal. It was normal to me going to the matches, and I'd be working. My grandfather's promotion in El Paso. We'd be doing whatever we needed to do to help out. We'd be helping selling 8x10s, or help set up the ring, or sweep up, whatever to help, because that's just was the business, and we just what we did, And I remember my dad wasn't. Why we moved to California was because my dad started working for Michael Bell at the Olympic Auditorium at the NWA Hollywood, and I remember going to the Olympic Auditorium as a kid, and being backstage when they'd be doing shooting TV and all different stuff, and it just was normal, So it was just Guerrero life. That's how it happened,
Yeah, and did you know at that time? I mean, you were destined. It was just a matter of time before it was going to be part of your life as well?
Yeah, I just thought, I always knew, man, me and Eddie always knew what we wanted to do. I look back at it now kind of going, God, how the heck did we actually make it? Because there's a lot of second, third generation wrestlers that don't make it out there. And we look back at the odds were so stacked against us, but we just knew what we wanted to do and what we were going to do. So we just followed into the footsteps, and it just, I look back, it's very naive thinking, because I mean, what was I going to do if it didn't work out? I kind of didn't have a fallback.
Yeah, you didn't have a plan B.
I didn't finish college, and I actually should. One of my biggest regrets was not finishing college. And I look back at it now, going, God, man, what would I have done? Was I going to go bartend? I didn't know. Be a barista at Starbucks. I wasn't sure. But after then we kind of just knew what we were going to do. We became wrestlers, and kind of made it at all different levels and everywhere we went. And thank God I was able to parlay that into other things.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about Eddie. I know how close you were, and people. And he's your uncle, but he was someone who came along later in life for Gory Guerrero, born in '67. Yeah. So, I mean, you talk. I mean, there's like 3 years difference between you guys. So, did you really grow up like you were brothers?
We absolutely grew up as brothers. Even though technically he's my uncle, but we're 3 years apart. We grew up as brothers. We fought as brothers, loved like brothers. And I was the big brother. He was the big brother I ever had. I was the little brother he never had. But we always laughed because he was my grandfather's late mistake, and I was my dad's early mistake. So we both weren't supposed to be here when we came. So it kind of just happened, But we were very close, definitely brothers, And I definitely consider my brother, not my uncle. When people say, "Hey, is he your brother?" I don't correct him. I say, "Yep," because that's really what it was.
And with that, though, was he somebody you really looked up to? Was he the guy you wanted to do everything just like, or were you guys pretty equal?
Well, definitely, man. He started wrestling when he was 18. I didn't start till I was about 23,
really?
Full time about 25. But yeah, it took me a little bit longer to get there.
But had you already trained pretty much? Yeah. I mean, at that point, had you already, was it in your blood? And it just seemed like you'd be in a ring from the time you were, a kid. No?
We grew up with a wrestling ring in the backyard, so absolutely. Absolutely. I just, I could do all the moves. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know why I was doing them or what they actually meant, So, doing spots and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we've done that our entire life. So for me to be trained, I'm talking about train in kind of learning the craft of wrestling and what everything means. Right. I knew I could tie up. I just didn't know why I was tying up, So that you learn that, and you really learn that throughout your career, and it takes years. Wrestling is such an art form. You don't get it in a year. Like right. I was talking to Steve Austin about this the other day, and really, I grew up in the business. I'm a third generation pro wrestler with a wrestling ring in my backyard, and was always in the ring. And it took me about 5 years of being on the road full time at WCW at the highest level of wrestling to really know what I was doing. And that's 5 years of wrestling 300 days a year. And that's to know what I'm doing. Then it took me another 5 years till I started getting the big, like I'd have Ric Flair, or I'd have, Steve Austin saying, "Hey man, great match." That took me another 5 years. So you're talking 10 years, and you're looking like 3,000 matches.
Yeah, I was going to say, who knows how many matches, but but you didn't early on. Yeah, early on, you didn't get a push from the uncles or your grandfather saying, "Hey, look what Eddie's doing," or even from Eddie. It was just kind of, that wasn't the path you were on yet.
Yeah, I did. I just, my dad was like, hey, Eddie was ready at 18. Yeah. He's like, I wanted to start. He looked at me and goes, "Man, you're not ready." He goes, "What's going to happen is that you're going to go to Mexico, or you're going to go to Japan. And because they can't kick our butts, they're going to kick your butt." He goes, like, you need to wait a second because they'll kill you for all the stuff that we've done. and he's kind of right, But even when I got into the business at at 25 years old, really full time, I had guys come as much as wrestling is entertainment as people think. I had guys trying to pay me back for the things that they couldn't pay back to my dad.
That's a hell of a classroom.
I remember. Yeah, no, for sure. But then thank God my trainers in the sense were Eddie, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, Fit Finley, Steve Regal, Arn Anderson, guys like that, man. I was like, there's others for sure, but those are some of the best of all time, had a hand in training me, Kurt Hennig, all those guys. Even though they weren't training me per se, they were training me because they're, always teaching me on the road, and I'd ride with them, and, you learn by just being with those guys and, by living it,
Well, and also, you're talking about a span of a couple of years, but you go to Mexico and then Japan, I guess in the eyes of your elders for some seasoning. What did you learn during that period? Because you talk about how it took you a while, but you were good enough to be with the WCW. So what did you learn during those 2 years that just that prepared you to even do that?
Man, just kind of learning. Man, I just learn how to listen, man. You're a ring. You become a ring general. Yeah. A ring general is somebody who's kind of in charge in the ring, and I say that for the listeners out there. you become a ring general by leading, but by also listening, and learning how to lead, so you kind of just sit there, and I was in the ring with some really good guys that actually, I would just shut up, and I would listen to everything they said and do whatever they said. If they said look left, I looked left. There was no argument. It was like, okay, that's how you learn this craft, and it's an art form, right? Like it really is, and I say it's such a dying art form because there's so many people. What I see now that's on TV and stuff is really not what, kind of just not what wrestling is in a sense. Wrestling is improvisation out there. It's not calling the entire match in the back and then going out there and doing it. That's not what wrestling is, and that's not kind of how we were taught. But there's so many less people out there that are able to continue to teach this, and the new guys coming up, although some are incredible athletes, they're going to have really short careers because the fact that everything they're doing is big spot moves. There's no real storytelling anymore. They think that the moves are the stories, but they're not. They help tell the story, but they're not the stories, And that's kind of where wrestling's kind of going,
Well, and you think about it. I mean, you come from a family, the generations there, and back in the time when I was with the WWF, there was a lot of them. I mean, you had Kurt Hennig who come, you had Bret Hart, you had all of these guys who had come up through, had fathers or even their grandfathers had been in the business. How much of an impact do you think that had on why, I mentioned the art and how it's changed today? Because they're great athletes, but there's something about that, the territories, and you're on the road and you're in cars and you're with these guys that are they're passing it down. And I don't know if we see that much anymore. How big a role do you think families played in those peak years of professional wrestling?
Oh, massive roles. I mean, the things that have been taught to me, not only by my family, but by other second, third generation, wrestlers that their families taught them. I had some great advice one time doing a promo from Dwayne Johnson from Rock. I mean, and that kind of changed from just when he said that to me, really changed the way I did promos. And that's, he was already The Rock. He was incredible, but he learned a lot of this from his family. And then, things that I've learned from Fit Finley, from Kurt Hennig, Dean Malenko are just invaluable lessons that who knows who taught them, who knows where they learned it, because either their parents, their family taught them, or their, brother taught them, or some being on the road taught them. But that's where you learn, man, is asking questions and being around these guys and just listening to them. And then that's really how you learn. It's not just learning in the ring, it's learning outside of the ring.
Yeah. So would you consider, I mean, that first big break was the WCW, and I don't know what role Eddie played in getting you in there, but as I've always said, you got to get the door open. And so was that really, you think, your first break, and how prepared were you for that stage?
Absolutely my first break, and I wasn't prepared at all. I thought I was, but Eddie talked to Eric Bischoff, and right now at the time they were signing everybody, and they were that cruiserweight division was hadn't even really taken off yet, and it just starting. They were starting to fill that roster, so he got me in, and I remember meeting Eric Bischoff the first time, and it was at a catering, and he goes, "Hey man, we're creating a spot for you in our cruiserweight division," and I was like, "Wow, okay, great." And then I was like, "Oh man, now I got to work." So my first match was with Steve Regal, and he, to be honest, made me look so much better. That's because he's such a pro. Yeah. He made me look so much better than I actually looked. Mm-hmm. And the first thing they said was, I remember hearing this, and Eddie told me, it's exactly what Eric said. Eric goes, "He's got a lot of charisma. He doesn't know how to use it yet, but he's got a lot of charisma, so we're going to sign him." And it was really, it was Steve Regal, I could have gone up there with somebody who wasn't good, and I would have stunk up the joint, And then really, I just kind of learned on the job, I kind of got out there and it's tough because you had Eddie who was rocking it at the moment. So they're comparing you to somebody that you just can't be compared to, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, you should be as good as Eddie. And it's like, wait a minute, you can't, you're not, you can't be, there's one Eddie Guerrero and he was already coming to his own right there, and he'd already been wrestling for 10 years. So, so you're trying to fill shoes, but the same thing that happened to him, when he first started, they were expecting him to be, my father and his brothers. Right. And then when my father started, they were expecting him to be his father. You just can't. One thing that Eddie's told me is like, hey man, you're you, right. Be you. Don't worry about us. It's there. It's in there. It's going to come out, So it was just, there was a lot of frustrating moments, and there's a lot of times that you're filling roles that you think you should be better in, but AO was always telling me, man, cream rises to the top. Keep going, keep pushing. So kind of what you do, and just kind of keep going out there, and then eventually, you'll be seen for your talents. Look at Kofi Kingston. How long Kofi's been? He was there at least 10 years, right. And really hit that stride with the New Day, and now he's a champion there. So it takes a bit, man. You don't get it. Doesn't happen overnight.
No, and you know what? And story after story with people I've talked to, in many cases, it's to the point where they keep handing you these gimmicks, they keep telling you how to do this and how to do that, and you have in the back of your mind or in your gut that this isn't right for me. And finally, when you just say, "This is what I'm going to do, and it's going to make or break me," but I have to be true to this. Is what sets him free. I mean, you just mentioned Kofi, and I haven't had a conversation with him, but I imagine if I did, he would probably say, that's what happened with New Day. He just said, either I'm out of here or this is going to work. We're not going to listen to them anymore. And did you have any kind of moments like that along the way early on when it started to make a big difference for you?
Yeah. In a sense, you it's such a catch-22 because you have to, be
play
a
the
team
game.
player.
Yeah.
But and play the game. But at the same time, you kind of have to do it your own way. It's one of those things they say: the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but if it squeaks too much, it gets replaced. Right.
That's right. You get the new part.
Yeah, man. So you kind of, you need to make some waves in there, but you also got to know your role a little bit. Also, it's, if it's up to us. If it was up to me, I was of course you're going to be the champion, but it's not. It's up to one guy. It was Mr. Van, and you kind of just have to you got to just make lemons out of lemonade sometimes, and or lemonade out of lemons. Yeah. You always you just got to sometimes play the hand that's given to you and try to make it as best as you can. And that happened to me several times in my career, and it's happened to everybody. Everybody, unless you're John Cena, you're having to. They're not really writing for you. They're the writers. They're writing to save their jobs. I get it. Yeah. So whatever is handed to you, sometimes you just got to try to make it work. The best of your ability. And if you're able to do that, then they'll see you. So they see a spot for you. And that's kind of how wrestling is. It's sad right now because now that. From what I understand, I'm not there anymore in like WWE. So what I hear there is from the wrestlers a lot is that everybody's walking on eggshells so much. They try to keep everybody so scared for their jobs, and that no one wants to step out of the box and just be them. And that's how what made wrestling so great. If you look at wrestling, let's say in the 80s, these guys, they didn't listen to promoters. They did what they wanted to do because they went out there and did it. Now, you have to do what's best for the promotion, but at the same time, you're doing it your way because you worked for some of the best in the business. Where these guys, they were the toughest guys out there, and they were the best performers because they did it their way. Yeah. No one's going to tell them how to do their character. You can't. Somebody can give you a role, but if you don't, take it upon yourself to kind of do it the way you want to do it, it's not going to be good.
Yeah, and you just hit it right there. The main point there that nobody knew those characters better than they did, and so there's nobody that was going to be able to tell them how to put words in their mouths. Those guys would do these cut promos, and they didn't have a piece of paper in front of them. They didn't go over to outside there and memorize. They just came out there and they knew what that character would say, given whatever the storyline was and wherever they were. And I think I've brought that up several times. Working though with the WCW at that point in time, man, they were riding high. It was a lot going on. We talk about the 83 weeks. You were right there.
Yeah.
What was it like to be? We saw what was going on in front of the cameras, but what was it like to be backstage in that organization at that point in time?
Man, it was so fun, man. When we first started WCW, it was fun, man. It didn't get to where everybody was unhappy till just at the end. Yeah. But man, we had 3 years of that. It was so great. It was young in the business where it's me and Alex Wright and Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio and Eddie and Chris Jericho and all these guys that we were just young in the business, having fun, living our dream, which is being in the ring. And we were in the cruiserweight spot, which was great. There was a ceiling for sure that you couldn't really break out of there, which was okay. And, it is what it is. But it was great. Us all working together and then hanging out together. And I mean, we were on the road so much back then, and we were just young, dumb, and it was great, man. We loved it. Getting paid making money, and we're part of the one of the biggest organizations in the world. It was pretty awesome, man. It was one thing that I really cherish a lot, and I miss it a lot. At the end, things changed with management changing, and you didn't really know who your boss was anymore from week to week. But that wasn't the entire time. That was just at the end, and I understand why they ended up dropping off, and then we redid that. We redid it when we went to WWF at the time. When we got the ones that got picked up and their contracts got picked up and taken over. Man, it was great again. It was great. You learned how a wrestling organization is supposed to be run, and it was awesome. There was about 5 years right there straight, 7 years that was pretty awesome, pretty incredible. That it was you were just just doing the same thing, really at a highest professional level, and being with your friends on the road and wrestling some of the best in the business and the best wrestling organization in the business.
When you talk about those you said it wasn't really bad until the end, and it's been well documented. But you've heard a lot of these guys talk about the fact that you didn't really know what was happening. You didn't know. You'd hear a lot of rumors that Vince was interested, and then it was some other organization, and Eric was going to take it on himself. And were you concerned at that time what was going to happen to you, or were you confident that whatever happened, you were going to be okay?
Again, being super naive, I was just like, I'll land on my feet. It's all good.
It'll work out.
I saw how other people were very, they were upset, when it ended, then because they were at the end of their careers or in the twilight of their careers, so they weren't going to be picked up by Vince and stuff, But we were like, I was just starting out, and I was just, Eddie was over there, so I figured, I'm going to be all right. And sure enough, I was very naively, but again, I look back and going, how the heck did this work out? I don't know, but it did. But like I said, I wasn't worried at all, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it worked out pretty damn well, that's for sure. Going to the WWE, and when you first got there, there's different stories. Of course, you've got superstars that are already there, so they're concerned. You've got these 25 contracts coming in, these guys coming in. What was that atmosphere like? You'd worked with a lot of these guys anyway, but was there some animosity, or were you guys welcomed in?
Yeah, we were welcomed. I think so. There you're vying for your spot at all times, which is okay. And the competition is, I thrive on that. But
it's good.
You had guys that they were protective of their spots, and if you look back, I kind of for the first about a year, I kind of not floundered there, but I didn't have a whole lot. It was kind of like just a little bit here and there, and they'd put you in, and then I was able to do the tough enough too. They wanted me to be a trainer on that, so yeah, absolutely. And then little by little, you start doing different things. And I remember the first time they had me and Eddie tag with each other, and I think he'd already been let go, and he just came back. He got released. He had some alcohol and drug problems, and went and cleaned himself up. Got that's well documented. But he went got himself cleaned up and came back with a vengeance. And when he did, at one point they put us together just to see how it was. And our first kind of like, I think it was like a Velocity match or a Saturday night show, whatever it was. One of those shows. They put me and Eddie against Edge and a young John Cena in tights. Well, when we got done, man, I had Eric Bischoff was there, but he was back there, and he was going like, "Wow, like, oh my, that was incredible." And we're like, "Well, what'd you guys expect? We've done this our entire lives." So then, about 2 weeks later, we didn't know where they were going to go with it, and I go to the gym, get to the town, and then all of a sudden Eddie's there at the town, and we start seeing him at the gym, and he's like, "Hey, man, it's you and me tonight." I said, "Oh, really? Okay." Because you and me main event of SmackDown against Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, and I'm like, oh, okay. We put us in, and we just rocked it, man. We just went there and kicked butt, and we were with two pretty damn good performers in there in Angle and Benoit, and after that it was off to the races, man. We just started Los Guerreros, and they were like, "Okay, that's it. You guys are together." We're like, "Okay, let's do it."
Yeah. Well, you always were together. But when we talked about the problems that Eddie had, and this was pretty much initially when you got there, were you aware that he was struggling with these issues? And this is a guy you'd known, your whole life. Was it just something you couldn't really do anything about because that's how the way Eddie was? I know I've heard you talk before that, he cleaned up when he was ready. But what was it like for you to have to stand on, next to him, literally, and watch this happen?
Man, being really from the Guerrero family, I was definitely a codependent, and I didn't know I was until Eddie explained it to me after he got clean and sober. But really, it was just kind of how it was. I was so used to covering up for anybody with substance abuse issues. It's kind of probably a good thing because it never led me to do the same thing, because I learned real fast, like, hey, don't do that. But doing that I was such a codependent that I was just always covering things up, and always just, dealing with their mess ups in a sense, So, it's just kind of just the way it was. And I look back at it now and kind of just go like, well, that I learned now to not enable anybody in that position now. Now it's like, hey, dude, okay, I'm not doing that. I won't have any part of that. But it took a long time for me to actually do that, because you're being a codependent, and everything that means in that is that you're codependent on alcohol and drugs. You're not actually dependent on it, but in a sense you are, because you're covering up for your loved ones that are dependent on it. So, and it affects you just as much, and you get into bad habits also. That is, even though you're not the one using, they're just as destructive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
yeah. And so when Eddie did leave, I mean, I don't know if it was a cold reality that he was losing everything, including his family, and Vicky talked about it. But when he decided that he was going to change his life, he did it in a big way. And a lot of people talk about, he went and did those, whatever he could pick up to do to prove that he could do what he was not only doing before, but better. And when he came back, maybe the best he ever was. I wasn't there, and you probably could tell me better, but when he did come back, how good was he at that point?
Well, Eddie Guerrero was always Eddie Guerrero, man. He was, one of the best of the business. We always knew it. Unfortunately, it took him to pass away, in a sense, for everybody to see it and admit it. But, we knew it. We already knew that this guy was really special, like very special, something about him. Any, addict who's gotten clean will tell you that when you get clean for yourself. You don't do it for anybody else. And so he, unfortunately, had to lose everything for him to sit there and decide. And this, straight from Eddie's mouth, he finally said, "Look, hey, I'm getting clean because I want to, not because I have to do it for my wife or I have to do it for my job or I have to do it for my family, because they were no longer there. It was no longer there. Him and Vicky were splitting up. You know, he'd already been fired. He kind of lost everything. So, you know, there's two ways. There's two ways to go. You either go down, 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 or you clean yourself up. And so finally he was like, that's it. You know, and I realized that I can never, ever, ever have a drink again. That's just not in my DNA. It's not in his DNA. So, you know, it wasn't always like that. It took a little longer, you know, a little bit. It got worse and worse and worse as the time went on, you know. But, you know, it's unfortunately it had to happen. And, you know, it was the best thing for him, you know. But, you know, he'd already done all the damage. And, you know, for him passing away at 38 with a, you know, heart disease, he'd already damaged himself too much for it to come back. But you know, who knows? Everybody's different. You know, you guys that don't get clean and sober until they're in their 70s, and then they're fine. You know, so everybody's DNA is different. But when it's your time, it's your time. It doesn't matter, you know, what you've done or whatever. It's, you know, when it's your time, and that's kind of what happened to him.
Yeah, and with Eddie, as he went off for this, you know, to change his life, really, and he was away from you and everything else. But how did that change you in your life? Because, like you said, you'd been kind of this codependent. You'd been around him. A lot of the path that you traveled had been along with him. How did you change during that period of time? Because was it, I don't know, was it maybe the real first time that you were completely on your own, except for your time in Mexico and Japan? But this is when you were a professional and you were among the top superstars in the world. How did you grow during that period? You
know, you definitely change, you know, for sure, because you don't have a crutch to stand on there, you know. Now, remember when he did go to WWF, him and the Radicals left. I was by myself a little bit over there also in WCW. But, you know, when he really in WWE, when he left, it was, you know, there was no crutch there, you know. And I had already made good, great relationships and stuff for sure. And I just, well, you know, you start coming into your own when you don't get the opportunity, and that's kind of what happened. It just was, you know, you're given a couple of little opportunities, and you're able to start proving yourself, and people say, okay, this kid can work, he can go, and you know, and so it's, you know, just kind of coming in your own, and that's really what happened, you know, without the crutch there, and I was fine with it, you know, it wasn't like I was like needed my pacifier, you know, to be okay. But, you know, you like that there, because then I always felt, you know, and I say this to other brothers who are in this business, I said, man, be, you know, cherish this, because there's nobody that has your back like family. You know, the reason Eddie and I were so good in that ring together was because I was 100% confident that he had my back no matter what, and he was confident I had his back no matter what. So whether we could win in a fight against, you know, anybody, let's say the Steiners, to say, it didn't really matter. We just both knew that we would die trying in there for each other, you know, and in that sense that, you know, we really would, you know, we would. I know wrestling's entertainment and all this stuff, but it gets real fast in there. And there's times that, you know, if you don't have a partner that you're, you know, confident in, you know, sometimes, you know, you can tell those teams that you know, that are really great, because, you know, they're willing in a sense to go in there and lay their lives down. You know, Eddie and I would have done anything for each other in there, you know. Yeah, you couldn't. And all he had to do was, sometimes in the ring, was funny, was just look at me. He'd look at me, and with a certain look, I said, it's on, let's do this, you know, and vice versa. I'd look at him, and I had a couple words that I would say in Spanish, and he would just be like, let's do it. And we go in there and have to kind of lay the law down a little bit in there sometimes, you know, and thank God people didn't kill us, but, you know, they would sit there and listen and say, all right, cool, you know. And there's a couple of times, you know, there's some well-documented times that, like, we got into one time, we were with the world's greatest tag team with, you know, Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin. And we, you know, in the locker room, we had to tell them what was up. And thank God that they respected and they didn't kill us, because they really probably could have, you know?
Yeah.
But we look back at lots of that now, you know, but, you know, at the time it kind of needed to be done. And, you know, it is what it is, but, you know, everybody was better because of it, you know, and relationship with them actually got better and stronger, and our matches even got better because of the fact that it was like, hey guys, all right, so when we're in there, we're the boss, you listen to us. Okay, you got it, and we went from there.
Yeah. You talk about cherishing some moments there. That period of time, and it would be short, but when you guys were the Los Guerreros and as you know together, and he was healthy, does that stand out really as among the best time for you?
One of them for sure. It was so super special, man. I mean, there was,
so many. But...
Yeah, definitely. Okay, it's hard to say something wasn't. One of the, I think the best moment. Eddie and I always wanted to be the tag team champions of the world. That was our dream growing up. We would take, my dad and Uncle Mondo, my dad and my Uncle Hector's belts that they had, and we would play in the ring like we were the tag team champions of the world. We never really played that we were the heavyweight champions of the world, like by ourselves. We always did it together. So for us to win the WWE Tag Team Championships at Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden, it was pretty big highlight, Then after that, we both set other goals for ourselves, and then we both became heavyweight champions. But we had to, we achieved one goal, and we were like, hey, we achieved that, we've got to do something else. But really, that was pretty special, man. And after they'd broken us up, and I guess we were really only together for about a year, which is just weird because it seemed so much longer, but only about a year that we were together as Los Guerreros. Mm-hmm. When Vince McMahon, was going to break us up, basically his thoughts were, look, with you guys together, I have one match. With you guys against each other or separated, I have two matches. So that's, we're like, all right, great, let's do it. And I went on to do my thing, and he went on to do his thing, and, it was what it was. But when we look back at it, I remember at one point, this is like maybe right before Eddie passed, we looked at each other like, man, that was really good, man. We didn't know how good we were, and, there were so many great tag teams out there at that time. I just felt at that moment with wrestling being heels or being baby faces, with promos, with everything, being singles, being tag teams. I think at that time, we were the best in the world at that time. In my opinion, I felt that we could have gone and could have hung with anybody, and that we were, and other teams will agree with us, at that moment, the Hardys have told me the same thing. I've talked to them. You talk to the other guys like, the Dudleys, all those guys, they're like, guys, you guys were just so good. It was every time you guys were on TV, it was just magic together. So when I look back at it, man, it was so special, man. It was like, wow, God, we didn't really know what we had.
Yeah, and you didn't know how long you were going to have together, and it wasn't too much longer after that. In 2005, we lost him.
Right.
And I know a lot of people know that you were with him. You were at that hotel in Minneapolis, but I don't know if people know that. I mean, he was literally in your arms, and as difficult as that must be to look back on for you, would you have had it any other way if he was going to leave this planet that you were there?
No, I really wouldn't have. At the time you don't think about it, but I look back at it now and say it was a gift, man. It was a gift from God for him, for me to be there at his last moments, for me to be the one that was there. It was a gift, man, because I could have woken up just like everybody else and said, hey, Eddie passed away last night. What? But it wasn't. I was there every last second. So, as weird and as morbid and as it sounds, it really was a gift, man. I'm really glad that it wasn't, it wasn't his wife, because that just was so hard. I don't know if anybody can ever get over that, I don't know. No, I don't. Vicky's a pretty strong woman, so but it's just one of those that you wouldn't wish it upon anybody. So I'm glad that it was me.
Yeah, and the ensuing years, those with WWE, was it the same for you after that, or did you lose something for the business? I know you did a lot of stuff with Ray, which was awesome, and you guys had some great runs in there. But was it different for you after that?
it was the person who walked into Eddie's hotel room and the person who walked out changed. I left that person inside that hotel room, and it was that person never emerged and is kind of no longer with us. I changed, for sure. So, was it different? It was different, but it wasn't, man. It was wrestling, and this is what we've done our entire lives, and I remember Vince coming to me that morning, and we were talking. He says, "What do I do?" And we were having a super show. He's like, "Do I cancel this whole show?" Because we had everybody there because everybody was flying to Europe for a European tour. He's like, "Do I cancel this whole show?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not. Do you understand that Eddie would not want the show must go on. These people paid money to come see us, that we need to put on a show." So he was cool enough and smart enough to put on the Eddie Guerrero tribute show, which is still, I look back at it now, it's like, God, there's so many memories and feelings and passions. It was such a great, great show from that. And Eddie would have wanted that. Eddie would not have wanted to be canceled and all the fans go home. Absolutely not. He'd want that show to go on. And it did, it had to.
Did you appreciate the storylines that followed that, or in some ways do you feel they took advantage of a situation? There was some good and there was some really bad and tasteless, So it's definitely some very lazy writing at times, and I can say that with all the criticism because I saw it and I was like, ooh, that's not good at all. Very cheap, lazy writing. And then sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was really good, But, whatever. It's wrestling. It's not always going to be great, It's not always going to be great. It's not always going to be bad. So, whether people like it or not, they're trying different things. And Vince is always one of those guys to kind of, push the envelope a little bit. And sometimes sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And straight from his mouth, man, he's said, he's been so successful, but a lot of times he hasn't been successful. He goes, not everything I do. This is right from his mouth. Him and I just talking together. Him saying, look, not everything I do is successful. Not everything I've done has worked. But when it works really big. So, there's a lot of forgetfulness. You throw stuff against the wall and just hoping something sticks. Yeah, well, we could go through what went on beyond there and your time with the WWE, and of course, what else you've done in there. But what I really found fascinating is how you kind of made that transition where it was still very much part of wrestling, but then also in the world of entertainment, as far as like the telenovelas. I mean, with Lucha Underground, and a great. I mean, it really is. It's so much. It's a show that's so much fun to watch. And I don't know what season they're in on that now, but was that? I don't know how that opportunity came up, but you dove right in. I mean, I think you were one of the main creative forces of that from the beginning, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, I definitely have my spot there for sure. It's happened, man. They called me one time. Krista Joseph, who was a writer for WWE, he's was the head creative writer for Lucha Underground, and he called me and said, "Hey, man, we're getting ready to launch this new show. I wonder if you'd like to be a part of it." So I talked to him, and I was like, "Well, there's a much more than me just coming in and being a wrestler." So we kind of talked, and we talked with their head guys, Tony Jensen and Eric Van Wagen, and they agreed to bring me on as a producer. And, really, thank God, because you have these guys doing a TV show, but it was wrestling, So I was showing them, I was showing them all the wrestling stuff, and they were showing me, the TV aspect of it, Right. So it just kind of worked out really well. I learned a whole ton being there, and hopefully passed on some stuff to them. But I really don't when we first started, man, I was involved in everything. I mean, I would look at the mats and say, "These mats are wrong." What do you mean these mats are wrong? I'd be telling the set design, "This mat, you can't have this mat. Look, they're flying past it. It's a 4-foot mat out there. They're already flying past it." They're like, "Well, we don't have any more money in the budget." And I would say, look, before we know it, these guys, break their head open on concrete. There's nobody that for them to sue. Now there's Mark Burnett for them to sue. So they're gonna miss. And then all of a sudden, the showrunner Eric Van Wagner would be walking by and say, "What's going on, Chavo?" I said, "Look, man, these mats are definitely too small. We need them at least double size." He'd say, "Okay, order them right now." Right away, boom, order them, because I don't care how much it costs, order them. I don't care if it's in the budget, order them, because he listened to me. He was a wrestling fan. He liked wrestling. I think he'd already produced the Legends house for WWE, so he was the showrunner on that. So he got it. So they'd listen to me. Thank God. I'd be in the costume department and say, "Okay, you can't have spikes on their knees." And they're like, "No, this has to change. So they can't wrestle in this match. You can't even see." And they're like, "Okay." So they changed things around, and I think at one point, man, I was probably on everybody's crap list where they would go, "Oh no, here comes Chavo. What's he going to change now?" Because I was always going, "Hey, this can't change. This this can't be this. The wrestlers are you're getting them here at 2 hours before bell time. I need them here 5 hours before, because we've got vignettes to shoot." Like, okay, cool. I'd be our executive. One of our executive producers, Skip Chasen, who's a great director, and he's really responsible for the way the Lucha Underground backstage end up looking, all the backstage film stuff, all the scenes and stuff, the dramatic scenes. He was really involved in that. But I'd work hand in hand with him and say, "Look, he's a martial arts guy." And I said, "Guys, you can't have everybody doing martial arts. They don't do martial arts in the ring, so they can't have them doing martial arts." So he would listen to me and vice versa. And at times I'd listen to him, and it was just a collaboration, man, for sure. It was really cool collaboration. I loved working there, and I hope that it kind of continues, to be honest. It's in limbo right now, and hopefully it comes out of limbo, because I thought it was such a great product, and we kind of changed wrestling in a sense. We just made something different that no one had really seen before. So I was really, really happy with it. It was a great learning experience. And then from there to go right to Glow. Actually, I went into something else, and then went to Glow, and then Glow. Talking about learning on the job, man.
That's big time.
That's pretty big. Yeah, that's really big. And now I'm behind the camera with the director, and I have me and I'm the wrestling coordinator. So the stunt coordinator, Shauna Duggins, is an Emmy award-winning stunt coordinator. She's awesome, incredible. She's taken me under her wing and is really teaching me the stunt business. So before you know it, I'll be hopefully filling roles. Being the actual stunt coordinator, and I'm behind I'm getting the scripts before anybody. Even before the actresses, and I'm changing things and saying, okay, this, the executive producers and the creators, Harley mentioned and Liz Flayhive, they don't have to listen to me, but it's their show. But anything I say, they're like, "Yes, okay, Chavo, you got it. We'll change that." I said, "Look, you can't do this move because that move was not invented until 91, and this show, is based in 96. Okay. We can't say this terminology is going to look bad for wrestling fans. Okay. The set design, okay, I ordered all the rings and different, just the different mats and different things. And so, really, I'm hands-on on that also. It's a pretty cool thing to be specialized and know wrestling, because it's not many people do. It's good. It's good, I think, good for me to keep a job.
Yeah, but is there, now that you've had extensive experience on both sides of the camera, is there one you prefer more now?
Yeah, I definitely like being on the creative side now. I like being behind the lens now. Yeah. I like creating. Definitely, it's. I just enjoy. I just enjoy. That's something that I want to do, is eventually direct. Whether it be a feature film or TV series or whatever. I definitely want to do that. It's something I feel that. That's just the next progression, and so I'm working hand in hand with every director we have and learning from them too, just sitting there and just kind of watching and learning and seeing how they do it. And, it's a lot of work, but it's pretty cool. I like that a lot also.
Well, Chavo, you come from a long line of entertainers. You have definitely carved your own path, and really just thank you for entertaining us, and I know you'll keep doing it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for watching, and everybody who's listening, follow me on Instagram at Chavo Guerrero Jr. See all the new stuff that's coming up. I just launched my own beer, so my own beer is out there now. Called
really?
Called Los Guerreros Mexican Lager, and it's kicking butt. The LA County Fair is going to carry it this year, so it's that one's another venture, you know. And I got other things going on.
Yeah, you sure do, man. Well, I'm glad you took some time out to be here on Primetime with us. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Appreciate it. Good luck to you and all the listeners, and always thanks for supporting the Guerrero family, and there's more to come. And Viva La Raza.